Okay, so for number 5, you're writing the number as a fraction. Okay, so it started out as the number 29, a whole number, and to make a whole number into a fraction, all you do is you would divide it by 1. So we just put the whole number over 1. So 29 over 1. And then, so your answer is 29 over 1. Your error was that you, we can put the number as a decimal. Okay, for number 6, again, we're writing the number as a fraction, and they gave us the number 0. So in order to write that as a fraction, that would equal 0 divided by 1, because 0 divided by 1 is 0. So your answer is 0 divided by 1. And your error there was, I probably should have said wrote. Put the number as a decimal. Okay, for number 7, write the number as a fraction. So right now it's a mixed number, so remember we need to make it mad. So 3 times 8 plus 7. 3 times 8 is 24, plus 7 is 31, over, denominator stays the same, 8. So your answer is 31 over 8. So your error is put number as decimal. Okay, for number 8, it's write decimal as a fraction. So they gave you the decimal 32 hundredths. So remember, you look here and you see, okay, how many places do I have? Here's the tenths, here's the hundredths. So remember I said if you have 2 places, that means when you put it as a fraction, you're going to have 2 zeros because it's in the hundredths place. So there are your 2 zeros. So you're going to put 32 over 100, and when you say that, it's exactly how you would say this, 32 hundredths. So your answer is 32 hundredths. Okay? However, it does want you to put it in simplest form. So let's go back here, and we're going to divide by 4. So we know 4 can go into both. So 32 divided by 4, you have is 8. 100 divided by 4 is 25. And that's as far as we can go. So we're going to put that as is 8 over 25. And if you want to circle it so she knows that's your answer. Your error here was wrote number as decimal. Okay, for number 9, it wants you to write the decimal as a fraction. So it gave you 8 tenths repeating. So remember when I said if we have a single digit that's repeating, then that number is going to be in the 9th place. So that means that this is 8 over 9 because it's in the 9th place. It's repeating. All right, so our answer is 8 ninths. And your error, it looks like you just wrote a whole number. So wrote as a whole number. Okay, number 11, it wanted you to find the product. So if you remember, before you can multiply fractions, you have to make sure if it's a mixed number, you need to put it as an improper fraction. So we're going to do 4 times 7 is 28, and then 28 plus 4 is 32. So we have 32 over 7 times 9 times 3 is 27 plus 1 is 28 over 3. And then if we could simplify, we can here. We can divide both by 7. So 7 will be a 1, 28 will be a 4. Now we can multiply across. So 32 times 4, that's 8, and then that's 128 over 3. Now you can't leave this as an improper fraction. We need to make it a mixed fraction. So how many times can 3 go into 12? We can go into 12 4 times with nothing left over. How many times did 3 go into 8? It can go into 8 2 times with 2 left over. So it's 42 and 2/3. So your answer is 42 and 2/3. And your error was, let's see, did not multiply correctly. Okay, for number 12, it wants you to find the quotient. So remember, you cannot just divide. You have to get this into a multiplication, and we know we do that by doing keep, change, flip. So what's down here? Let's keep, change, and then flip. Okay, can I do any simplifying? Yep. 2 in the 10. 2 becomes a 1. 10 becomes a 5. Now we can multiply. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 1 is 1. And then take that out of an improper fraction. 5 divided by 1 equals 5. So your answer is 5. And here we can say, it's like, did not, let's say did not divide, we'll say completely. Okay, number 4 wants us to find the quotient. So I have a mixed number. So first, before we do anything, we need to make this into an improper fraction. So 4 times 5 is 20, plus 3 is 23. So 23, denominator stays the same, 5, divided by 2/5. Now we need to keep, change, flip. Keep 23 over 5, change to multiplication, flip to 5 halves. Okay, I can simplify with the 5s, make both of those a 1. And now we have 23 times 1 is 23. 1 times 2 is 2. Now we're going to do 23 divided by 2. How many times can 2 go into 2? It can go in 1 time. 2 can go into 3 1 time, and it has 1 left over. Denominator stays the same. So your answer here is 11.5. And your error here, we'd say only wrote the whole number. Okay, here we are finding the quotient, but we have some variables in here. All right, so let's start by keep, change, flip. So we're gonna keep 4k over 5, change to multiplication, flip to 2k over 25. Can we do any simplifying? Doesn't look like it. All right, so 4 times 2 is 8. Then we have 2 k's. K times k will be k to the second. Okay, remember they have those in like invisible ones. And then 5 times 25 is 125, and that's your answer. So your answer is 8k to the second over 125. So up here, we'll say your error was did not divide. Okay, for 15, same thing. We have variables here. So we need to do keep, change, flip. So A, keep the AB over 8, change to multiplication, and flip A up top, B on the bottom. Can we simplify? Yes, we can cancel out both of these B's, and that's all we can do. So we have A times A, so we know A stays the same, and then there's those little ones, imaginary ones up there, so it goes to the second, and then 8 times 1 is 8. So your answer here is A squared over 8. And we'll say that looks like your error was did not correctly simplify variables. Okay, here 16, it says evaluate, which we know is solve x divided by y if x equals 3.5 and y equals 3/4. So x is 3.5 divided by y is 3/4. Okay, so we're going to change this mixed number to an improper fraction. 3 times 2 plus 1, so that is 7 over, denominator stays the same, divided by 3/4. Now let's do keep, change, flip. 7 halves times 4/3. We can simplify here with the 4 and the 2. It's a 1 and a 2. Then go straight across. 7 times 2 is 14. 1 times 3 is 3. Now we need to put that in a mixed number. How many times can 3 go into 14? We can go in 4 times with 2 left over. Denominator stays the same. So your answer is 4 2/3. We'll say here did not divide correctly. Number 17 is find the sum. So we see that they have different denominators, so we need the denominators to be the same. Least common denominator here is going to be a 10. So this is going to stay as 9/10. 2 we can make into a 10 by multiplying times 5. Whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do the top. So 1 times 5 is 5. Now I can add 9 plus 5 is 14 over 10. So now 14/10. We need to make that into a mixed number. So 10 can go into 14 one time with 4/10 left over, but I can simplify 4/10 by dividing both by 2. So that would be 1 2/5. So your answer is 1 2/5. I would say, let's see, did not add, we'll say with common denominator. Okay, 18, same with the other. We need to make sure that we have the same denominator. The least common denominator here is 16. So 3/16 will stay the same. 5/8, we can make that into a 16 by multiplying times 2. So 5 times 2 is 10. Now we can subtract. So 10 minus 3 is 7. Denominator is the same, 16ths. So your answer is 7/16. See, the error here was did not, did not use common denominator. For number 19, again, we are finding the difference. So we can make, the least common denominator here is 10. So this will stay 7/10. Okay, this here, we can make it to a 10 by multiplying times 5. So 1 times 5 is 5. Can I take 7 from 5? No. So you need to borrow. So that 7 is now a 6. The whole, I can make, they're going to be 10/10. So plus 10/10 is 15/10. So if you want to bring your 7/10 over here and then subtract, 15 minus 7 is 8. So 8/10. We can simplify that by dividing both by 2 to 4/5. Now go back to your whole number. 6 minus 2 is 4. So we want to put those together. So it is 4 and 4/5 is your answer. 4 and 4/5. So the error here was did not borrow correctly. Okay, for number 20, we're finding the sum. So we have 6 and 4. We can make both of these into a 12, would be our least common denominator. We multiply 4 times 3, multiply 6 times 2. So 3 times 3 is 9, and 1 times 2 is 2. Now we can add 9, 10, 11, so that is 11/12. Now add your whole numbers. 8 plus 5 is 13. So your answer is 13 and 11/12. Let's say did not add the fraction correctly. Okay, so for 22, I want you to write the inverse. So in order to do that, you have to make this into an improper fraction. So 8 times 6 plus 1, so that 8 times 6 is 48, plus 1 is 49. Denominator stays the same, so to 6. Now you will do your inverse and go ahead and it's 6 over 49. So 6/49. So the error was did not make improper. Okay, so you have another 21 on there. It's the word problem. So what I did was I took out what we needed to know. So the jug contains 3 1/6, they poured out 1 2/3. So if we're pouring, that means that we are getting rid of, so we're going to subtract to see what is left. Okay, so we need to make sure that we have the same denominator here. So I can go ahead and keep this as a 1/6. This here we need to make into a 6 by multiplying by 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Can I take 4 from 1? No, so I need to borrow. That's now a 2. I'm going to add 6, 6. We now have 7, 6. If you want to bring over this guy here, 4, 6, subtract, that's 3, 6, which we know is 1/2. Now let's go back to our whole number. Now we have 2 minus 1 is 1. And we need to make sure we put those together. We have 1 1/2. So 1 1/2. And I would say it looks like did not find common denominator. Okay, number 22, last one, was a word problem, and I took out what we needed. So they had 2 blocks, and they glued them together. So that means that if we're gluing them together, that means we're going to add to see what the new thickness is, because I think it was saying how thick they were. So here we're going to keep this as 5/8. So our least common denominator is 8. So this is going to be an 8 multiplied times 2, that's 6. So 5 plus 6 is 11/8. And then we need to make that into a mixed number. So 8 goes into 11 one time, with 3 left over 8. Okay, so it's 1 3/8. And again, it looks like you added without finding your common denominator. So did not find common denominator.